these days I'm a lot more confident than I was. Just in time to get old, you know. These days, I'm more confident than I was.
But I've always thought of you as someone striving for perfection.
Oh yeah, I'm compulsive about it. Yeah, absolutely. Obsessive. What do they call it? Obsessive compulsive about it.
That makes you very difficult to work with.
Well, not particularly. Not particularly. The people that work with me musically would tell you I'm not difficult to work with at all. The only times that I become difficult, to be honest, is when there's one of those about. I'm so phobic about cameras that I start to get really snappy with people.
What are you scared that this will show? Why does it scare you so much?
Because my image of myself is a controlled image, and I think the truth is I know how I look best, whatever. Even if I'm overly insecure, I know how I look best, and I think that's probably when I get difficult, when I know what's going on and I know what the results will be, you know.
But George Michael, is that not vanity?
No, it's insecurity, isn't it? I mean, I always think
it's
really,
also vanity.
But is it? Is it vanity when you're trying to? I mean, I grew up with Andrew, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, the difference was so obvious between us. Andrew never spent any time in front of a mirror because he just knew he was a beautiful boy, you know, and he didn't need to spend any time in front of the mirror or do his hair or whatever, and it never changed. He was always the one that couldn't really be bothered, and I was always like this, you know, because I didn't feel up to the job, you know. I felt, and that to me, I really always find that very, to me, they're such different words, and they're so obviously, insecurity and vanity are so different. You know, there are plenty of people, incredibly vain people, who don't care about being in front of cameras because they like the way they look. Mm-hmm. How can not liking the way you look be vanity? It's a really strange, phenomena to create a persona that looks as confident as I think when I make especially the early videos. That persona looks so confident, and yet the truth was always a long way from that, you know. It's a very strange thing that actually my whole career is that there is so much importance attached to the way I look in a lot of my career, because it was never something I ever saw happening, you know. The whole thing started with a teen idol kind of phenomenon with Andrew and I. So that was always the basis. But considering, it's just a strange thing considering how uncomfortable I am with it, you know, that it's gone on and on. And I honestly think it's made me, I think it's a lot of the reason that I have become, to a degree, what they would call reclusive, you know, because I don't like going out and getting my picture taken. I don't like seeing pictures of myself in uncontrolled situations, you know, like you know, I moved the lighting in here or whatever. I still have that kind of insecurity. And actually, my career would have been much easier on me without that, you know. I mean, I'm sure I've profited from women liking the way I look or whatever, but it would have been, mentally, it would have been much easier for me if I had entered the industry slightly later in life, you know, where I wouldn't have chased the idea of being screamed at, because that's so seductive when you're 18, 19.
So you were chasing it?
Oh, of course, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I would never deny that. But I only loved it for about 2.5 years. I think my image started to intimidate me very quickly, you know, kind of, they can't really think that. You know, if I go out today and I don't do my hair, they'll all realise I'm ugly. That kind of feeling, you know?
Where's that insecurity coming from? Because if you look at it from the outside, you've got fame and fortune and a career, and you've made an impressive finger mark on the musical industry and on our ears and our hearts.
I hope so.
And you're sitting there talking about a huge insecurity, and on your new album, Patience, there's a lot about the devil inside and the fear that you've carried around for ages. Where's all that coming from?
Well, I think they're just human. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds like it sounds more extreme than it is. I think in reality, we all struggle with demons. You know, we all struggle with massive insecurity, and I would imagine, I mean, at least with my insecurities, I have a lot of things to balance them with. You know, I have my success that I can place, you know, and my ability, I can obviously have healed me over the years. Success has healed me to a certain degree. I was just a very insecure child who then became a very insecure young pop star. And I just think one of the reasons that people like what I do is because I talk about my insecurities in a way that I think people can relate to.
Have you, in searching for perfection, in searching for something flawless, have you had that moment in your career or in your life where you thought you hit that song or that moment?
I think, yeah, there are plenty of moments. I'm not one of those people that thinks everything I do turned out great. You know, I'm not Prince or anything. I'm not going to throw thousands of songs at the public because everything I do is great. But there have been moments where I've thought, bang on. When I first saw the finished edit of Fast Love, I thought, bang. 20 years ago, for instance, if I got into a cab, right? If I got into a cab and the guy said to me, oh, mate, I wouldn't want to be you for affairs, and, you know, I would think, yeah, right. But now, right, when somebody says to me, whether they be a cab driver or anyone else, but now if somebody says to me, God, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes for anything, a lot of them, I think, are telling the truth. Because they understand the difference in fame and success from 20 years ago and what's happening now. The thing with fame and success now is a very dangerous kind of, you know, you're really putting your head in the mouth of the lion by going anywhere near fame these days.
What would you tell a 20-year-old George Michael with the knowledge you have today? Would you tell him to keep on dreaming and keep on going for fantastic and make it big, or would you tell him to, no, take another road?
Oh, I don't think I would advise myself any differently, because then I wouldn't be here today. Because if you take one different move, the whole course of life changes, doesn't it? But no, I think I'd just tell him to get on with it. You know, I probably would have told him to come out earlier. I definitely would have told him to come out earlier. But
in a different
other
way
than that,
as well?
Yeah, it would have been in a different way, yeah. Yeah. It's funny though, you know, I don't really even look back and think, what was I thinking, or regret it, because so much good stuff came out of that for me personally that, you know, laughable though it is, it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Some people seem to lose their creativity and their desperation once they found happiness. So I can ask it that way. You fall in love again and you seem happy. And is that happiness part of the reason why you're talking about maybe this is your last album?
Well, actually, no, I don't think it's that. But actually, I think there are two things that were very difficult in the making of this album. One of which was a real tragedy, which was losing my mother. And the other was an incredibly positive thing, but was a massive change in my life, which is to really share my life with somebody. Because the last person I chose to share my life with, within 6 months of being together, I knew he was going to, in the days when there was no successful treatment for HIV, I spent the remainder of our time together terrified of losing him. This time, I mean, I'm 8 years into a relationship now with Kenny, and in a way, I think it's creatively, if you're used to isolation, if you're used to being lonely, creatively, it's quite a major shift for your creativity to handle when you actually get the things you wanted out of life. You know, which is why I think sometimes when people have family, it's so uplifting and it's so much more important to them, naturally, that their musical inspiration starts to fade, and quite often the career becomes a way of supporting the family, you know, which is, I think, and once that happens, it's very difficult for the creative juices to keep flowing. so I was getting used to a tragedy and getting used to something which is a brand new situation in my life at the same time, you know. But ultimately, I would say that the relationship is what saved me from the tragedy, you know. I used to feel cheated because I'd been born 10 years too late to appreciate the late 60s and the early 70s and, you know,
yes.
flower power and great music, the Beach Boys and Dylan and the Beatles and the Stones, and it just goes on and on and on, right? And I used to feel as a writer, because the idea of having other people doing the same in the same area as you, but stealing each other's ideas because they're brilliant ideas, and just all kind of that whole period of time, I used to feel cheated of that. And now I realise I'm just so lucky not to have been born 10 years later, when there was nothing really left. You know, when it was PWL and, you know, I don't know, when did it start? It started with all the Kylie stuff in the late 80s or whatever. But I now realise I'm one of the lucky few that were born within a 20-year period that changed the world.
But you think the industry has taken over the heart?
Oh, I haven't. I think the music industry and the radio has been almost what you would call heartless for a good 10 years. And I genuinely believe that Strength of Emotion has been pushed gradually out of radio, because Strength of Emotion could take, I really believe this, if you hear a song, say you heard You've Been Loved or Jesus to a Child, which you wouldn't these days, they wouldn't play Jesus to a Child now, but say you hear that song, it can take you somewhere. It might take you somewhere about something in your own life. It might move you incredibly, and you may miss the next ad. You may miss the next 5 ads because you're thinking about something else. That, I genuinely believe, is what's happened. Gradually, the American idea has been gradually, keep them happy, keep them buying, right? Whatever you do, don't distract them.
When I listen to your record and I get to the last 2 songs, had that been a movie, that would have been a farewell scene, and the last song, which is a piano with no words, would have been end credits. Is that what it's like? You're singing about, I think I'm through, I know, and snap silence, and it's silence for a long time, and then comes the piano. And I would expect it to be end credits over this picture, actually, because if you look at what you put there, it's a picture of you walking away.
That's absolutely basically it, yeah. I mean, but it's me...
Is that the end of George Michael on albums?
Well, no, because it's the end of... For the moment, I mean, I don't know. If the plan that I've talked about publicly works, I hope never to be in this situation, right? After this, I would really like to carry on working behind the scenes with other artists, and I'd like my music in the future to be distributed on the net, on the internet. I want to stop charging people for my work, give it away, but with basically the option of making a charitable donation with each download. So you give people the opportunity to just take it for free, but as you're doing that, you give them the opportunity to be altruistic and give a bit of money.
Do you think?
And that's principally because I don't believe that my creativity will survive the future of the media. The reason it's called Patience is principally because of the title track, and because I think that patience is such an important value right now. But it does quite nicely represent how I've treated my career. I've always gone for the long run. You know, I've always, in a strange way as a writer, always seen my career as a body of work. And when I look at how my music is viewed, I see it from the future. In other words, how will it be viewed out of context, out of 2004 or 1984 or whatever? And I always knew that it was for the long term. When I had people, even at 20, when I had people saying, "What are you doing?" You know, with "Wake Me Up Before You Go," and they'd say, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like, "Okay, whatever you say. I think people are going to be listening to this song in 20 years' time." And sure enough, whether it's because it's the most cheesy record ever, whatever, it's a good record.
It is.
You know, it does what it's supposed to do, and And I always thought that way. I've never, it's like when I make a video, like the video for Amazing, I'm not very pleased with at all. And for a long time, I didn't want the whole thing to be shown. Most people are making their videos to sell the record over the next couple of months. And me being a control freak, I'm just thinking, will it look bad in 20 years' time?
Listen, you said at the beginning of this interview you didn't look at yourself as being beautiful, but you can at least look at your body of work, because that is beautiful. The record is...
I hope so. I mean, I don't have a problem with giving myself musical credit, you know. I've always had a lot of confidence in what I did. I always had the arrogance, maybe, to believe that I would be here for a long time, and that I would choose the time of my departure, you know. And 22 years later, I kind of feel vindicated in that, you know. And it's been worth all the ups and downs and the highs and the lows. I'm getting an award in next week, I think, for being the most played artist on British radio for the last 20 years, over the last 20-year period. And I'm massively proud of that. That's the greatest achievement I can point at, because that's about how much people wanted to hear your songs. I had a plan, and I was right. You know? Something about my life was right.
It's amazing. George Michael, you're amazing. Thanks very much. And like I told you before, dancing to, while doing the dishes, listening to Freak, and you told me I can't do the dishes while I listen to that.
It's not very sexy, is it, to dance, to do the dishes while you're listeing to Freak?
Actually, I have to do the
Freak
dishes.
is supposed to make you want to go and have sex with someone, not go and wash some dishes.
So have I.
You know, I haven't had a joint today because I just reminded him what the question was, as opposed to me saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what the question was. If you line up the 4 solo albums, they spell flop. Faith, Listen Without Prejudice, Older, Patience.
That's right.
Flop.
Flop.
Flop career, complete waste of time.